participation by all members of any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the planning board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by following the instructions at the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. So we'll begin by doing a roll call vote. Jeremy?
Here.
Jonathan?
Jonathan Hankin here.
Oh,
Malcolm.
Jeremy Higo here.
Malcolm Fick?
Here.
I'm Pedro Pachano. I'm chairing the meeting today in the absence of Brandy, who is on vacation. Brandy Nelson. Do we have any Form A's this evening?
No, this is Chris speaking. No Form A's today.
Right. Also present in the meeting, for those of you who cannot see, is Chris Rembold, our town planner, and other things that he does for the town.
Assistant Town Manager and Director of
Assistant Town Manager and Director of Community Development.
Community Development Planning, that's right.
Okay, anyway, we'll move on to the second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 26th meeting.
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Second.
And I have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Jeremy? Well, before I do that, is there any discussion on the meeting, on the minutes? All right, we'll do a vote. Jeremy?
I'm gonna recuse myself because I read them, but I wasn't present for that one. Was it right?
Okay, he'll recuse himself. Malcolm?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Aye.
And I, Pedro, will vote aye as well. Third item on the agenda is a site plan review at 302 Stockbridge Road, an application for McDonald's Corporation for site plan approval for plan changes to the drive-through lanes and parking lots at 302 Stockbridge Road in Great Barrington per section 10.5 of the zoning bylaw. Is there somebody here to present?
Yeah, Pedro. Okay, here we got a hand up. Randy, I'm going to promote you to a panelist role. Okay, just a second. There he comes. So you can feel free to turn your camera on and mic and all that, and go through the chair with your presentation. You can put your screen up also if that is how you want to proceed. So go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Randy Bebout with Bowler Engineering, here to talk about the proposed side-by-side drive-through addition Stockton Road.
Randy, before you proceed, your sound, is everybody else hearing Randy?
It's hard. Breaking up.
Yeah, your sound is a little muffled.
I haven't had anybody tell me that before, but I will try to speak up.
Is there a little feedback? Do you have two devices on, or?
I don't.
Okay, well, we'll just have to go with it.
Okay. Do you want me to pull up the drawing? Is that helpful to everybody?
Yeah, Chris, unless you want to do it. I don't know how, usually I think you do it, don't you, Chris?
You should be able to share, Randy, if you want to go ahead
Okay.
and drive it yourself. That's fine. Or if you want me to do it, that's okay too.
1 second. Can everybody see that?
We can, yes.
Perfect. All right. So existing McDonald's restaurant have 52 spaces currently. With this modification, we'd be going down 26 spaces. Required by code is 25. Originally there was some couple parallel spaces here on the rear property line, which we've eliminated and added a green area with 3 maple trees in there. The configuration of this doesn't change drastically with adding the side-by-side. We just pulled this in a little bit. We add this island in here, which creates the 2 lanes. Drive-through operation is a single lane, and then it merges into 2. We're relocating currently they have digital menu boards and a canopy. So one of each of those. So we're relocating that to the new position on what is referred to as the primary lane, the inner lane, and then we would be adding a second canopy, second menu board, on the secondary lane. Lane on the inside is 12 foot wide because that's got curve on both sides. Lane on the outside is 10 feet wide, different order points, and then once the order is taken, the car proceeds. This line is the line that's painted on the pavement, and it's actually on the screen on the monitor, and that's how they store the orders so that they're in the right sequence. But then it merges back into one line. So adding the side-by-side adds about 3 cars stacking, which presuming stacking isn't really an issue on this site given the length of the building, proximity to the exits. I'm not certain of that, but we had about 3 cars, and it just allows for the orders to be taken a little more efficiently, more efficient, helps improve the customer satisfaction. And I know there was so that's pretty much it as far as the improvements. You can just note that the area of the new drive-through was done in concrete, so it sort of defines the drive-through lane. And there's a yellow painted stripe along that outer edge of the concrete pad that sort of further delineates the drive-through lane. This island does have a 6-inch raised curb, same as the inside lane that has a curb. So that's really the proposal in a nutshell, and I can answer any other questions the board may have for that.
Randy, are you familiar with section 6.2 of the zoning bylaw having to do with landscaping requirements
I did
on Stockbridge Road?
Yeah, I did see that. I apologize. I don't know I guess it's Chris. That was you that I believe that forwarded that information to our office. Yes, but I did review that. My knowledge is those trees had not been added as part of that prior approval. So if that's something that needs to be done, then we would ask that that would be part of the conditional approval.
Okay. Randy, would you mind stop sharing your screen so we can see the other faces?
Yep.
So, Chris, the question here with regards to the landscaping is that we have these requirements from a previous application that haven't been met. Is it best to impose new requirements and kind of forget about the old ones, or what's the best way to proceed?
Okay, so just to bring folks up to date, this McDonald's restaurant was the subject of a special permit a few years ago. I think it was 2017, where restaurants in Great Barrington require special permits. Originally, the restaurant was built with a special permit. In 2017, McDonald's came forward to renovate the restaurant, and that's the building and facade that you see there now. As part of that approval, the select board required landscaping requirements be met along the Stockbridge Road. There's kind of a grass strip on the McDonald's side of the public sidewalk. The existing property line is just on the backside, just on the McDonald's side of the public sidewalk along Route 7. So in that grass strip between the sidewalk and the parking lot, the western parking lot, there's a requirement for landscaping for trees in there. And during that previous approval, both the planning board and select board noted that requirement, and there was a condition imposed on the special permit by the select board. So it's come to our attention that that requirement was not met at the time or since. And so I think that if the board wanted to move forward with this application, you could either reiterate those requirements and set a deadline or something like that, or impose different requirements. I must confess, from a staff perspective, I frequently miss this particular section of the bylaw in my review. As you know, the section 6.2 is the required Route 7 landscaping trees. And so while McDonald's came forward and the Bowler team came forward with this proposal, our attention was focused on the eastern side of the site to remove parking, which is great, unneeded parking and asphalt, and add grass and trees over there, as Randy showed in the plan. So 3 trees gained over there, but we were all kind of oblivious to the west side of the site because no work was being done there. So we just didn't even pick that up. It was in a comment that Chair Nelson made to the board that we thought, oh gosh, we've missed the Route 7 landscaping requirements. So that's why that's up here in front of the board. I think you can proceed either by reinforcing the previous conditions and moving ahead, or imposing your own, whatever you think is necessary.
What about asking them to resubmit showing the planting?
That'd be fine, or a condition, conditional approval, whichever you feel is.
Condition hasn't worked so far, so.
Right, whichever you feel is.
We should try a different approach, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Offering, I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't know if an approval was granted, I don't know if there's another step for the McDonald's pull permit to actually do this work. But if there was, maybe it could be tied to that. I'm just suggesting, talking out loud.
How come you got something?
Well, I think either way we do it, we're going to have to depend on them to follow through with it, and we're going to have to, I think, be a little more diligent in making sure that happens. Jonathan, I don't see anything in it, whether they include it in this plan or whether we reference that plan in our approval, they still have to do it.
Yeah, the one thing that gets me is that the regulations are strict in that they're not allowed a certificate of occupancy until they've complied. And apparently the certificate of occupancy, obviously, after the previous renovation was granted. I'm not sure that, yeah, so is there an avenue here to send an extra note to the building inspector's office with regards to this, this point in 6.2, to make sure that before they're allowed to use the drive-through again, that they plant some trees?
What happens with site plan approvals is I write up the approval, and if there are conditions, I write those in as well and highlight those for the building inspector.
Okay.
So they are brought to the attention of the building inspector. In this case, I don't think there's a certificate of occupancy that would be issued.
They already had one.
They already have one. There are electrical permits, I think, and maybe some building permits for those structures, the canopy structure. Randy, I don't know when the work is proposed, but, if you wanted to do the construction work this summer, the ideal planting time is not until the fall. So, you'd be holding up permits until the fall to make sure the plants are in. It might be a bottleneck. So just throwing that out there.
Unfortunately, I don't, I'm stepping in on this project tonight, so I don't know that when they are planning on building it. I would assume that this, given agenda June, I would assume. September.
I'm missing most of the words, Randy. It really sounds like you're speaking from a tunnel. And I don't know what it might be, but that whole sentence I missed.
I'll try to speak up. Like I said, I'm stepping into this project tonight, so I don't have all the critical details of the project schedule, but I'm assuming that being that it's end of June, that this is probably a August, September start date. Typically, once approvals are granted, we're generally another 30 days plus before they actually go to construction.
If that's the case, if it's the board's preference to see a resubmitted plan, if indeed the construction is not until later in August, I think there would be time for the applicant to submit a plan that complies before this board gives formal approval. But it's up to you. You can do it either.
No, I think.
Jeremy, you got any thoughts? Can't hear you.
You're muted.
Chris, when you mentioned deadline, so what does that do? If we were to condition it with a deadline for the trees to be planted, it doesn't really do anything, right? If we allow them to do the work before they are.
Right. Yeah, I guess my point was that the construction would probably naturally would occur before the tree plantings, which are best done in the fall. And that would sort of put any leverage the board had in permit granting on the back seat. You would lose that leverage to see the trees planted first. So you should either condition an approval or request a compliant plan.
But they could do the work and even have all of that work completed and just not use that second lane until the trees are planted.
Sure.
But what is the enforcement? Like, what is the mechanism for that?
Call the building inspector.
No, I know, but what's the stick?
I think, as Chris described, this site plan approval will reach the desk of the building inspector with the conditions. So we can add whatever conditions you'd like to add to that approval.
Is there a financial mechanism that could be requested that would guarantee that, put funds in the town, letter of credit or something of that nature? That I don't know if that's typically done.
Yeah, we don't have that written. I know what you're talking about, sort of in lieu of fee. We don't have that written into the bylaw, unfortunately, for this item.
Yeah. And it's sticky because they ignored this provision the last time. So that makes me a little cautious about how this is going to be enforced.
All right. So do we have any comments on any other concerns with the application?
The trash enclosure is not moving. Is that correct? And is there enough room to drive by there? I'm not sure from the.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Malcolm?
Was that a yes?
He said, yes, there's enough room. It is not moving.
Okay. I can't tell from the diagram how much room there is.
Looks like
this is for the pass-through traffic that's not going through the drive-through lane, right?
Yeah, there's it's like a cement pad that's in front of the trash enclosure. And so I think you can get up on that a little bit to go by.
Yeah, there's at least a minimum of 15 feet from the edge of the drive-through lane to the curb.
Okay. To the end of that concrete pad in front of the trash enclosure?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think that, but
the edge of the new drive-through lane to the outside curb that we added. There's
Yeah.
minimum of 15 feet there, which is a standard that McDonald's uses for a bypass lane.
Is that pad raised from
No,
the surface of the road at all? Okay, so
no,
it doesn't present any kind of obstruction.
It's like a 1/4 inch or something.
Yeah.
typically it's all the same elevation.
Right.
But I mean, the design is smart because the spaces they removed were the ones that were going to cause trouble anyway, with people backing up and people going by and, you know, interfering with that outside lane of
Yeah.
the drive-through.
One of the first iterations of the plan was that those spaces on the west side were going to remain, but they weren't going to be head-in parking spaces. They're going to be rotated and to be parallel with the drive-through lanes, which was so it's decided to. The team just decided to remove them in lieu of, you know, plant there.
Remove some parking spaces for theory.
And given that the sycamore is there, the best sycamore in Berkshire County, as far as I know, can they get some relief in terms of the number of trees they have to plant?
I don't think that's
if you take that as one tree and then plant 2 more or plant whatever.
it's not clear in the requirements, but that was part of the discussion in the last special permit, that there's a wonderful sycamore, why interfere with it or take away from it? And so the condition on the special permit the select board granted was to work with the tree committee to figure out where and how many trees to plant on that western lawn area of the McDonald's. So you can certainly reinforce that condition in your approval if you want.
Well, why would if they have not met with the tree committee? I have no idea if they have or not. If they have not met with the tree committee, why don't they meet with the tree committee and then come up with a plan and submit the revised plan? That seems pretty straightforward.
And look at the last special permit that was issued and work from there.
Yeah.
I mean, it still has to conform to the special permit that was granted though, right? It can't be less than what was there.
Right. So the application came in, was it last week? I'm not sure what the decision deadline is on this one. Let me just see. There's a 60-day timeline on special site plans. So let me just check real quick. Decision deadline on this particular application is August 8th. So at some point
We have plenty of time.
during July, if the tree committee can get convened, that would meet Jonathan's suggestion.
Board meets once a month.
Twice the second Thursday and the fourth Thursday.
That's us. Or are you talking about the tree committee?
Oh, the tree committee is call of the chairperson. I don't think they have a regular schedule. They might. I could be wrong about that. So you could shoot to come back to the planning board at the July 28th meeting, Randy, if you get enough info before then.
Yeah, I think we can give them feedback that I don't think there's anything particularly offensive about what they want to do. It's just I would like to see a complete site plan.
Okay.
Any other comments, Jonathan, on the application?
No?
Jeremy, you got anything else?
Yeah.
All right, well, so what we typically do is run through the site plan approval requirements. So why don't we do that? And then we can, I'm not sure that there would be a motion necessary, but we'll give instruction to the applicant as to what what we want. Does anybody else have it? I have it right in front of me, so I can just read it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
First item for approval is minimize the volume of cut and fill, the number of removed trees, 6-inch caliper or larger, the length of removed stone walls, the area of wetland vegetation displaced, the extent of stormwater flows increased from the site, soil erosion, and threat of air and water pollution.
None of that pertains.
I don't think anything applies either. Draining patterns are going to be the same, so I'll move on to number 2 without objection.
Well, I wonder if so if they're going to be putting if they're going to be doing work along Route 7 in planting trees. I mean, do we need to put anything in there to be careful about the sycamore?
No, they're not in the same area.
It's-
They're separated by public sidewalk, and I'm sure the tree committee will think about that as well.
Okay.
They won't be planting under the crown.
Right.
Hopefully.
All right, second item is maximize accessibility and pedestrian vehicular safety, both on-site and assessing and exiting the site.
So it's actually increasing the accessibility.
Right.
Well, not for pedestrians going through the parking lot. It's increasing the traffic there, but that's my. I'll deal with that. When I
but-
walk over to Price
Well, you
Chopper.
don't have to get out of your car, Malcolm.
No, I walk over.
All right,
Sorry.
without objection, I will move on to the third item, just to minimize obstruction of scenic views from publicly accessible locations. I think that that's applicable.
We can still see the sycamore.
Yeah. Item 4, minimize visual intrusion by controlling the visibility of parking, storage, and other outdoor service areas viewed from public ways or premises residentially used or zoned. So there's no change to that on site. Any other comments on this item?
No.
Number 5, minimize glare from headlights, minimize glare into the night sky, and minimize overspill into adjacent properties. So we didn't discuss that. So these canopies and the menus, I'm assuming are backlit, and the canopies will have some sort of down-facing light. Is that right?
Canopy does have a down light in it, similar to the canopy that's there. They're digital menu boards, very little light. They adjust to the light level.
Did you say that the backlit menus adjust to the night sky?
Do.
Okay. Does the board want to see cut sheets or anything else for the new light on the canopy?
Do you want color temperature for that? Because I don't know. I mean, depending on how bright it's going to be under that.
No, I mean, we already have a digital menu board there. We're adding a second one. So it's the same specification.
All right. Any comments on the lighting?
So Pedro, I was talking about the lighting under, not the board lighting, but
The canopy
Okay.
lighting.
the canopy lighting. Do we want to specify color temperature?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, we have been specifying 3,000 K or less in other applications.
All right, Randy, so did you get that? Maybe I think the board's going to ask for a revised site plan, so maybe you include something in there about the type of light that will be included under the canopy, making sure that the color temperature is under 300 Kelvin,
3,000.
3,000 Kelvin, sorry.
300.
Yeah, and I would just notice that again, it'll be the same canopy that's there already.
All right, without objection, number 6, minimize unreasonable departure from the character, materials, and scale of buildings in the vicinity as viewed from public ways and places. Any comments on that? Hearing none, I'll move to number 7, minimize contamination of groundwater from on-site wastewater disposal systems or operations on the premises involving the use, storage, handling, or containment of hazardous materials. don't think that applies here. And then the last one is to ensure that they are complying with the zoning bylaws. So we have an item about the lighting. So more information that we'd like about that. And I'd like to maybe hear some direction for the applicant regarding a revised site plan or how to deal with the landscape issues.
Also, I have a question. He's making reference to the canopy, but I don't see the canopy on any of the plans.
It's
where is the
that dotted line you see on the island, and then there's the existing one next to the menus.
Want me to share that again?
Good idea, Irene.
It's not called out on there. So that rectangle, that's a canopy.
Yeah, there's also a detail, one on the detail page. Page 7 of the application.
I'm not seeing it.
Right there.
Randy's got it on screen.
Water speaker canopy. That's the title on it. Yeah.
Questions on that?
John, you good with that? Any comments?
Okay. It's strange that it's dimensioned to the top of the canopy, not the bottom, when you've got vehicles going underneath it. Typically for anything on a sidewalk, we have a 10-foot clearance. And that's 9 foot 11 something to the top of it.
They do have the gate, what they refer to as the gateway with the clearance bar. That's at 9 foot 4 inches.
Not 9 feet.
9'4" to the clearance bar. That's the detail on the same page as the canopy there.
Looks like it's 9 feet even.
I thought it
9 feet.
9 feet even.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Correct. 9 feet even.
So, John, what you're referring to is the provision in the sign bylaw. I don't know that we have provisions for this.
No, we don't. I'm just raising it as a question. 9 feet is not overly tall.
No, to limit tall vehicles with bicycles on top from smashing into the pickup overhang.
Yeah.
Okay, well, any further comments on that? And do you want to put a requirement on there, or you just want to bring it to the attention of the applicant?
No, it's on private property. It's up to them. It just seems a little low.
Okay. All right, so if we don't have any other comments here about the application, again, I'm looking for some direction on how to advise the applicant for the review with the tree commission, if we want to make a recommendation, if we want to just go ahead and make a motion to approve or disapprove. We want them to come back with a revised site plan. Anything else I missed? What do you guys want to do?
I'll make a motion that they meet with the tree committee as required by the special permit and revise their plan to reflect the planting that is approved by the tree committee and resubmit that to us.
Does that require a motion, or is this just a direction to the applicant?
Yeah, I had the same question.
That's pretty clear direction if you all agree with it.
Yeah.
And
Okay, John?
Jonathan, do you want to add that approved by the tree committee and that satisfies the existing special permit?
Well, I cited the special permit
Okay.
as the
Just-
reason for meeting with the tree committee.
Just so the tree committee, well, anyways, I mean, they'll know that they can't disregard that.
It will, yeah. Randy, we can work together to make that happen.
All right, Randy, so you clear on what we'd like to see when you come back?
2 items, trees, and the information on the canopy site.
If
Do we
you
need to-
also includes just some information about what lights are going to go under the canopy as well, please.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Oh, it did? Okay. I thought he said heights of canopy, not lights of canopy. Yeah, we can't hear you, man.
Do we need to
All right.
second and vote?
No, I don't think
No.
we need to do
This-
that. I think it's just
okay.
a recommendation for the next meeting. So with that, I think we can move on
Cool.
to the next item.
But
Thanks, Randy.
Jonathan made it as a motion.
Yeah.
So it should either, so he
You
can,
want to
can
withdraw the
withdraw it.
motion, or you want to, or would you like to have a vote?
I don't care if there's a vote or not. I'll make that as a recommendation.
Okay, good. Is that good, Kim? All right, Randy, thank you. We'll see you next time. So next item number 4 on the agenda is site plan review for 316 North Plain Road, an application from Kathleen McCormick for site plan approval to permit the 2-family residential use of a single lot at 316 North Plain Road in Great Barrington for section 8.1 and 10.5 of the zoning bylaw. And Ms. McCormick has joined us. Would you like to
Hi.
introduce the project for us?
Sure. For the record, Kathleen McCormick. Tonight I'm here in an individual capacity, not representing anybody. So just for the record, it's my private residence. The project location is 316 North Plain Road. And just for a little history on the project, I purchased the property in September of 2020. I'm very familiar to the neighborhood. I was born and raised in 311 North Plain Road. Then most recently, since I've been back in the Berkshires, I've lived at 321, and then I sold that and moved to 316. So I've got the triangle down. It's kind of 35 years within this little triangle. So very familiar in the area. I purchased this property. It was 8.5 acres with a Cape house on it. I've been restoring and renovating the Cape house since I purchased it, and that's my current residence. It's in an R2 zone. I brought a Form A in front of this board a few months ago, in which we divided that into 2 different lots. Lot 1 is 1.411 acres, and lot 2 was 7.12 acres, I believe. And that's how the property stands right now. The project that I'm bringing to you, it's in an R2 zone, and I'm looking to do a 2-family residential use of a single lot under 8.1 and more than one principal structure on a lot in accordance with 4.2.1. And it's a 2-family residential is by right in an R2 zone, but requires site plan review. So that's kind of why I'm in front of the board tonight. The purpose of the project, I'm constructing another residence, and the goal is to provide some housing options for my aging parents to bring them on into town, because they are currently outside of town in Otis. And I think in the future, it would be nice to have them have the ability to be on property with me. So with that intent, it complies with the master plan. It creates diverse housing options and also addresses the lack of senior housing in the area. So the project is 1,700 square foot, 1 floor dwelling that has a 2-car garage. It's going to be sited behind the current house, and it is shown on the site plan, and that site plan shows the division, shows the lot 1 and lot 2 that previously came before the board. So with 8.1, a separate building is allowed on the structure, but site plan review is required. To meet the section of 8.1.3, the building inspector has to sign off. Obviously, since I'm doing new construction, there'll be a building permit and a C of O would be issued before it could be occupied. There'll be a separate kitchen, toilet, and bath. The proposed new structure is a 2-bedroom structure. The current house that I live in right now has its own septic system and is on Housatonic water. The proposed structure is going to be also on Housatonic water and is actually going to tie into my existing leach field, but there'll be an additional tank for the new structure added, and those two will connect to each other. I've spoken to the Board of Health on that. Rebecca and I had a discussion. She wanted Mike Parsons to weigh in. He weighed in that that was acceptable to him, and so they both are satisfied that that's a acceptable way to proceed. It will meet fire code. It's also a 1-story building, so we don't have to worry about a 2-story access and egress off the rear as required. The bylaw requires 1.5 parking spaces for each dwelling. The current dwelling has 2 parking spaces that are shown on the plan. The new dwelling has a 2-car garage, so it provides for adequate parking. And there's plenty of permeable surfaces on the 1.4 plus acres. And I also requested to the board in writing in my cover letter to waive the traffic impact study as it's a residential use in a residential area. So those are my the highlights of my presentation. Chris, if you maybe want to put it up, I can answer any questions. It's a pretty simple site plan.
Yep, we can do so if the board would like to see it.
So, Kate, has anyone told you you're a PIMBY?
I'm a what?
A PIMBY.
No, you are the first, Jonathan.
That means parents in my backyard.
Oh, not yet. You could say no. Just kidding.
But you're adding 2 bedrooms to the septic system. Don't you have to expand the leach field?
No, the flow and the capacity is for 5 bedrooms as designed. And I have currently a 3-bedroom house and we're proposing 2. So the only thing that was a limitation on the system was I currently have a 1,500-gallon tank. So I need additional tank size. And the smallest tank is a 1,500 tank under the code now. So.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question about 4.2.1. Don't you need the bylaw change that we just voted at town meeting for this?
The cleaning up of the bylaw does, it does make it cleaner in my mind. So I'm willing to proceed with the fact the Attorney General will accept the bylaw and it reverts back to the date of publication. So I think it's covered.
Yeah, I think it's covered, but I think that it would be conditional on the Attorney General approving the bylaw change.
I think the timeline the Attorney General gave us was like mid-August. So hopefully that's plenty of time.
So it would be conditional on building permits all the way until mid-August, or I can proceed at my own discretion.
At your own risk.
I don't think we pass site plan review until it's approved. I mean, it's approved based on a bylaw that hasn't been approved yet.
Yeah, I think this board could probably act if it desired and say that your approval is conditioned on the Attorney General's approval of the recent.
Right, but she couldn't get a building permit until the approval from the Attorney General, right?
Possibly not. I can't speak for the building inspector, but
I would be willing to put a different condition on just so that I could keep moving, because I do have a contractor that I do not really want to lose. So I do control both lot 1 and lot 2. So the only thing that would be missing, I think Chris and I went through this briefly. I think I would need 1.5 acres because it is on serviced by town water. It's just not by town sewer. So to comply with the way that it is written right now, I think I would just need to enlarge lot 1 to be 1.5 acres. So I would, if the Attorney General does not pass, I would be willing to agree to adjust my lot lines to include it to be 1.5 acres.
Just push it back a little.
Yeah.
We would still need
Okay.
another action by the planning board, though. You'd have to submit another Form A, right?
I definitely would need to submit a Form A, but if the Attorney General fails to approve,
Right.
I would be fine with a condition to submit another Form A, which you obviously know it complies. So by adding more acreage, there would be no problem with that.
Any other thoughts, Malcolm?
I don't see how this could get started without the Attorney General's approval. Because our bylaw requires that double the area and the frontage. It also requires the frontage, which I think your frontage is right on the mark for the zone right now. It requires double the frontage, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think just the area needs to be double the area. You need frontage for the residential use and double the area, but you can allow for reduction if it's on, if you're on town water.
The area with frontage and other requirements of the bylaw shall be met for each building. So the area width and frontage have to be met for each building.
yeah, that's what that's the confusing language that's why we went to town meeting to revise it. So it sort of reads as if you'd need double the frontage, enough frontage for both buildings.
Then you wouldn't really have a 2-family.
Right. And then you would just split if you had enough frontage, you would just split the lot into 2. I think this board can act if you want to, and you can put that condition in that it's subject to the Attorney General's approval. I don't know how that impacts the building permit issuance or not. The Attorney General's approval.
Well, we'll just do our job and
Yeah, and if the Attorney General does approve, then the bylaw is effective as of town meeting date.
right.
Correct.
So otherwise, you're in this gray area between the issuance of the special permit public hearing notice, which was back in February-ish, and the Attorney General date. So it's as if you're operating 6 months of the year in a gray area and you don't know which bylaw you use. That seems a bit, seems to create some difficulty for everybody.
It does, and I feel that I have the right to move forward. It just is at my own risk.
Right.
That's my legal opinion. I understand the consequences. I may have zoning enforcement, and I have a very easy way to fix the zoning enforcement, which would be to move that the lot line. But I will have a definitive answer before I have a certificate of occupancy. So the building inspector could always withhold my certificate of occupancy until I correct the zoning problem.
Right.
So that's what I will talk to Ed May about.
good. We'll do our job. You do yours, and you'll get your building.
Thank you.
And I can't wait till next Tuesday when I can tell Ed that his daughter referred to him as elderly.
Well, I will tell you that my parents are on the call right now. So look up, I tried to use the thesaurus to come up with a better word, but it is what it is.
All right, so if the rest of the board would mind holding this procedural issue to the end of this review, I'd like to maybe focus on the merits of the application. If anybody else has any further comments on the application itself. Jeremy, you got anything?
I do not.
So, I mean, I'll just bring this up. But normally, you know, when we see this type of thing, we usually have a little bit of idea about, for example, changes to the topography, drainage patterns, that sort of stuff. We also see driveways and the way that they will interact with the new structure. I'm fine not seeing that. I think Kate has grown up enough to figure that out on her own. But does anybody else have an objection to not seeing those things?
No.
Okay, well, hearing no other comments, I mean, do I have a motion for approval, disapproval?
I'll move to approve the site plan
I'll second that.
as submitted.
Sorry, second.
Do we have conditions that we'd like to impose?
Yeah, it's just, it's conditioned upon the AG's approval of the zoning change. Failure of that would require coming back with a reconfigured lot.
Right, so I think that covers the one thing we didn't do before the motion was go through the site plan approval points, and I'll take responsibility for not doing that. Perhaps we can hold off on the motion for a moment so we can run through these items.
Okay, part of the discussion.
Yeah. So the first item, again, minimize the volume of cut and fill, the number of removed trees, 6-inch caliper or larger, the length of removed stone walls, the area of wetland vegetation displaced, the extent of stormwater flow increase from the site, soil erosion, and threat of air and water pollution. Okay, you have any comments on any of that? Are you taking down any trees?
There will be a few trees that are being removed. It was cited in an area that has the least amount of trees. There is some dead trees in that area as well. So when we actually go to do the excavating, we're going to selectively remove the trees that are required, just to open it up to have some lawn and be able to get some sunlight in there. But just a few trees will be being removed.
And the balance of the site is wooded, is it?
Correct. Yeah. The whole the 7, well, pretty much 3/4 of, you know, the whole front of the site is lawn, like the first maybe 1/8 of that site where my current house is, and then it goes all the way back to like the solar farm in Van Duzenville, behind Home Gas, being wooded. So there's acres and acres of woods in the back.
And the site is relatively flat, correct?
Correct. There's probably about 4 feet of grade change through that whole area that will need to be just evened out with the foundation. But there's the driveway as it kind of exists right now. There's already a driveway that almost, it's more of like a tractor road kind of right there, but we're just going to take that in to the house. So we cited it based on the existing conditions to have the least amount of impact.
Any other comments from the board? I'll move on then to maximize accessibility and pedestrian and vehicular safety on both the site and accessing and exiting the site. So this is normally where we see where you're going to put your driveway, for example, and where the parking is going to be. But if you're saying you're going to continue that drive to the house,
if you see how there's an arm on the driveway behind the current structure, it's going to basically wrap by the fire pit into the driveway. So it'll go in front of the house and just pull right in. It'll just arc right in there.
It's going to be a shared driveway, I assume.
Correct. Yes. Shared driveway. It's just going to be extended. It shows the area that is shown on that as the driveway of the current house is the paved area, but there's a gravel road that actually goes in and right by that fire pit into the woods right there.
Right.
So John and Chris, are there any requirements for a shared drive or two-family residential and single lot that Kate should know about?
No, and this isn't a common driveway. You don't have two separate
Right.
owners. It's one owner.
An owner. Yeah.
All right, anything else on this?
I hope they pay for plowing.
I'll make that a condition.
I should
They won't
say
be there.
that the audience has the right to speak before the board votes. I don't know if.
All right, the third item is to minimize obstruction of scenic views from a publicly accessible location. Not sure this application.
And you can't see the solar farm from North Lane Road anyway, right?
Right.
No, and you have to go to my back corner to see it.
All right, moving on. Minimize visual intrusion by controlling the visibility of parking, storage, and other outdoor service areas viewed from public ways or premises residentially zoned or used. So the cars are in the back, at least of the primary structure, so they're not really seen from the driveway. And I guess, Kate, I mean, garbage and recycling and all of that stuff, I suppose will be taken care of inside the house somehow or in the garage or something like that.
Correct. It'll be inside the house.
Right. Any other comments on this item? Item number 5, to minimize glare from headlights, minimize glare into the night sky, minimize overspill into adjacent properties. So
I did include in the application some spec sheets, cut sheets on the basic lighting, residential lighting that I was going to have. They're dark sky compliant.
and so the color temps here are 3000 and 2700, and they're both pointing downward. So any other comments on this item? Anybody?
So
Go ahead.
am I on? And so the first light, is that, so will we be able to, so you can see it lit up, right, from the side?
When you say the first light, do you mean the lantern or the barn light?
The lantern.
The lantern.
Yeah, the lantern is going to be actually on the porch structure. There is a picture in my application of kind of like an artistic rendering of what it's going to look like. And those are just going to be sconces on both sides of the entry door.
Oh, okay.
They're going to be they're going to be under a small little porch right there.
And so this is going to basically just affect your house.
Correct. Yes. And it's far away. The way that actually is, because it's blocked by, one of the reasons I situated the garage on that side is the closest neighbor that I have is to the north. So that kind of blocks the living space from there. So yeah, you won't see, the porch lights will be kind of sheltered. The only person that would see it would be my current residents.
All right, we good? Yep. Item 6 states to minimize unreasonable departures from the character, materials, scale of buildings in the vicinity as viewed from public ways and places. I think we can say that this is to the scale and character of the neighborhood.
I know you hate saying that.
Number 7, minimize contamination of groundwater from on-site wastewater disposal systems or operations on the premises involving the use, storage, handling, containment of hazardous substances. So that's not applicable here either. So the 8th item is applicable, which is to comply with the provisions of the bylaw. So we have this question here about 4.2. So further discussion on that. We have a motion and a condition on the motion. The condition, if I'm stating it correctly, is to comply with the zoning bylaw by complying or by having a condition that the AG approve the recent update to the zoning bylaw. So if he does that, then she'll be in compliance and she'll be good. If it's not approved by the AG, then she will have to return with either a revised site plan or a different plan to the planning board. Does Does that sound right?
I don't think you had a second.
Second.
Sure.
Yeah, Jeremy will second it. So before we take a vote on this item, I will ask if anybody in the audience would like to make a comment. If you do, please raise your hand and I will make sure that you're able to comment. All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote on site plan approval. Jonathan?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
And Pedro votes aye as well. All right, Kate. Hopefully
Thank
we
you,
won't see you
everybody.
again. Don't take that
Good luck, Kate.
personally.
Thanks.
Take the Attorney General to lunch.
Just don't spend more than $50.
Cheap lunch.
All right. Item number 5. Site plan review, Fort Giddings Street. Application from Philip Morrison for site plan approval to authorize the existing 2-family residential use with an accessory dwelling unit at 4 Giddings Street, Great Barrington, per section 8.1, 8.2, and 10.5 of the zoning bylaw. Is Mr. Morrison with us?
Yes, right here, Philip Morrison.
Hi,
Property
Philip.
property owner. Go ahead, sorry.
Chris, would you like to help Mr. Morrison with showing us some details of the application up on the screen for everybody to see? Or maybe Mr. Morrison, you'd like to do it on your end?
I'm
Oh.
ready to if you'd like me to, but either way.
Whatever you'd like to do, Phil, you can go ahead, proceed at your own pace. If you need any help, let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My wife Julia and I bought the property in 2001 as a 3-family. It was in rough condition and we lived in it for 3 years fixing it up before buying a property in New Marlboro, and have held on to the property since 2001. But now we've become tired of being landlords and we put it on the market as a 3-family, received a full price offer without inspection contingency on the first weekend, which is the market we're in. And the buyer, as far as I know, went to the building inspector and asked about converting it to a 4-family. And that's when we found out that it is not a 3-family, much to our surprise, even though we can trace it back decades as a 3-family. It has 3 addresses, it has 3 service entrances, 3 furnaces, and 6 exterior doors. We pay sewerage as a 3-family. So in this application, what we're asking to do is, by right, having it a 2-family, and then have one of the apartments is quite small, 483 square feet, as an accessory dwelling unit within the existing building. We're not changing anything as part of this application. We're just want the town to recognize what it is.
Okay.
It does have 2 driveways, both 2 cars wide. One driveway is on 236 State Road side. The other is at 4 Giddings. Again, 2 driveways, both 2-car wide, and 3 of those 4 spots can be 2 cars deep easily. There is never a need for 7 cars, but there is parking for 7 cars. We have had a site plan survey, which is in your materials. I sent Chris the stamped copy. Happy to bring it up on the screen. You should proceed.
Yep. Should we bring it up for the public, or does anybody on the board like to bring it up?
I'm looking at it.
Well, it doesn't, it looks like it's a non-conforming structure, both in terms of the 3-family or 2 plus ADU, and the setback from the side yard. He's not making any physical changes to it. So is there anything that we need to be concerned about, Chris?
No, I don't think so, Jonathan. And this was in my email notes to the board on Monday night in advance of this meeting, that, yeah, it's clearly a pre-existing non-conforming structure. non-compliant for the setbacks. But there's, as you said, there's no work being done. It's not going to trip a building permit or anything. So all this is doing is going through the section 8.1 and 8.2 to bring it into compliance, and that's it. Still remains the non-conforming structure still remains. What they're trying to address here is the use itself.
Use, yeah, okay.
So in the future, if somebody wanted to make a change to alter the building in some way, that might trigger the issues with the setbacks, but that's not in the proposal tonight before you.
Anything else, Jonathan?
No, that was pretty much it. You said are there 2 means of egress from each apartment?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Malcolm,
so,
got anything? Sorry, Jeremy. I'm going in the order that I see you guys on my screen. Jeremy, go ahead.
and so the parking is part of the structure, like the pre-existing non-conforming. I guess it's a question for Chris.
I don't understand the question.
Not to the
Parking.
use, because
There's
what
enough
we need-
parking on the site
well-
to meet the use.
so we need. Okay, but the parking is to the use, right? Not to the.
Right.
The amount of parking is determined by the use. In this case, it's a
5
two-family
spaces.
that requires 2 spaces each. The ADU
Yep.
requires 1, so a total of 5 are needed. You've heard
Yep.
that 7 at least can fit.
Yeah,
So
but
it will comply.
so, but what I was getting at is that, so usually we need to see like the layout of the parking, right?
Oh, I think that is pretty clear on the site plan that was submitted.
I can bring it up on screen if you want.
Okay. I mean, I see the driveways.
Yeah, there's plenty of parking.
Okay.
I have it still.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chris. If you can bring it up.
But I'm just, am I remembering this wrong, Chris? The site plan that we saw, what's in the site plan? On Bridge Street, and concerning the parking, in front of a garage, and then gosh, I can't remember. I don't know. I might be totally remembering this wrong. We made a recommendation. Was that the one we made a recommendation and the select board then disregarded our recommendation? But I guess that was different.
There
I-
was one on Bridge Street, but I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same apples to apples.
Okay.
But it's clear from the site plan, there's plenty of parking.
Yeah, these are gravel driveways with asphalt aprons to the streets.
Yeah, I mean, I drove by the site. Okay.
You got anything else, Jeremy?
No.
I don't have any other questions. Since it's a site plan review, we'll go through the criteria again, which for some reason has disappeared from in front of me. Here it is. Again, there's got to be a way sometimes not to waive site plan, but to say, Anyway, let's go through it. Minimize the volume of cut and fill. There's nothing being cut or filled here. There's no change. Maximize accessibility and pedestrian and vehicular safety. Again, there's no change. Have you had any accidents or injuries or deaths on the property due to vehicular traffic, Mr. Morrison?
None.
All right, good enough. Minimize obstruction of scenic views. So nothing's changing. Minimize visual intrusion by controlling the visibility of parking, storage, outdoor services. So again, nothing is changing.
Correct.
Minimize glare from headlights, minimize glare into the night sky, minimize overspill to adjacent properties. There's no change. You guys can stop me if you have any comments on any of these.
No, go ahead.
Minimize unreasonable departure from the character, material, scale of buildings in the vicinity as viewed from public ways. Again, no change. Minimize contamination of groundwater. There's no change from the use that has been going on there for decades. And then number 8 is to comply with the bylaw, which is what he's trying to do clearly. So, do I have a motion? Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve the site plan review.
Second, anybody? I'll second that. We'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. My apologies to the attendees. If anybody has anything to say, I know I should have done it before the vote, but I'm new at this, so please forgive me. If anybody has anything to say, please raise your hand. Seeing no hands, we will move on. Thank you, Mr. Morrison.
Thank you all.
Good luck, and we hate to lose you to New Marlboro, but what are we gonna do?
And so now, sorry, for my benefit, I can market it as a 2-family with accessory dwelling.
Chris?
What I'll do at this point is I'll provide you and the building inspector with a signed site plan approval.
Great.
And that,
Would be adequate.
yeah, I don't know what's adequate for your legal situation, if they need a certificate of occupancy or anything from the building inspector. I don't know. But if they do, then at least building inspector has the paperwork he needs from this board.
I mean, there may be code issues, but since you're selling it as is, I don't think it's an issue.
As is with no construction, it's probably doesn't trigger anything, but you'll have everything you need from this board to be legal under zoning.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. See you again. All right, so item number 6 on our agenda is housing strategies. Ms. Nelson has asked me to hold off on discussion unless anybody has anything that they want to bring up for next meeting, because she would like to participate in these discussions. Anybody got something you want to bring up?
So,
Jeremy?
well, I mean, I think just this last application was kind of interesting in that, and so that, and maybe to follow it, that this now becomes, the use becomes conforming now, right? As a 2-family plus ADU.
Correct.
So the structure is non-conforming.
Well, the
But
structure is
the-
not conforming, but the
yeah.
use now becomes
Right.
conforming. And it seems, I mean, I guess he had to do, it was not, it did cost him something, but it seemed relatively painless.
Previously,
But-
this would have required a full special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think that's, I'd like to hear back, what goes on with this, because this is really hopeful. Because I was just remembering other situations and it seems like this was like nothing. So this is really great.
Yes, so this was an existing use that just needed to be legalized.
Yeah.
And it, for all intents and purposes, met all zoning with the exception of that setback. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And we've had a bunch of these things in the past where people have had non-conforming. There was one up in the hill, I remember.
There's a couple up on the hill.
Yeah.
But they're usually doing some work, right? And so that's why it was more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
And this is selling it. That's the.
Yeah.
I'll share an interesting thing that I kind of came across as I was looking at this item. The building code has these sprinkler requirements, right? So they don't require sprinklers in 1 and 2 family structures that are under, get this, 14,400 square feet, right? So any 1 and 2 family structure that's under that size is exempt.
You said
Well,
14.
right? We're all good. We're all good,
14,000,
right?
yeah.
You guys are hearing, right?
We're all
14,000.
good.
So how many, think to yourself, how many units can you fit in 14,400 square feet? So the good news from the building code is that if Mr. Morrison, for example, was looking to build an ADU or do an addition or do a renovation to a structure that had 3 units, he would not have to, and it was still under 14,400 square feet, he wouldn't have to sprinkle it. If somebody wants to build, a 3,500 square foot building with 3 apartments in it, they got, technically they'll have to put a sprinkler in it because it's got 3 units. So, one thing I spoke to Chris earlier about this because I think it's kind of an absurd, and this is state building code. This is not the internet. The way the building code works is that there's the big umbrella international building code, and then the state amends it. So this is the international building code requires sprinklers in every building. The state has amended this provision for 1 and 2 family only, but it makes no sense, right? Because again, especially in the context of the housing situation that we have. So one thing I'm trying to do, that the code is currently under review. The building code is currently under review for an adoption of the 2021 code at the beginning of next year, and I believe that they do have 1 or maybe even 2 public hearings left. So I'm going to try to get involved to bring this issue up to them, and I'm trying to build some consensus from the town and from this board and from others with BRPC and everything to sort of bring this to the attention of the building boards of regulations and standards for their consideration, given the housing problem, right? Because again, if you say, we got like Bobby Houston, for example, if you wanted to put his 3 units in one building, you would have to have sprinklered it, which would automatically have added an extra $100,000 or so to his project, which is obviously in the context, the housing context that we're in, doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up to you guys. Anything else? Any future housing strategy conversations that you guys would like to have?
Well, I think, Pedro, your point is an interesting one, because if we're saying, 2 family by right in residential zones in Great Barrington plus an ADU, then this becomes a really limiting factor if you have them all in like this property in the same building, right? And so it seems like, at least for our town, we'd want to see it go up to the trigger to go beyond 3.
Yeah, I would like to see up to 8. I mean, in 14, just do the math. How many units can you fit in 14,400 square feet?
Yeah, but I don't know.
I mean, just simply at 1,000 square feet a unit, nice apartments, right? It's about 13 units. So I understand you have more people living in there. You got shared walls, and I understand all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
that 14,400 square feet is, to me, nonsensical. But how many houses do we have in town that are 14,400 square feet?
Yeah. But I wonder if like the approach should be like small goal, big goal, like go for the big goal, but make sure you get at least the small, Right.
I'd like to see them reduce the size of the square foot. Let's say, an 8,000 square foot building.
Yeah. And then not, yeah. Yeah.
And then add the 3, 3, maybe even up to 4 units and something like that.
So is this state law, or is it a regulation that gets passed by an agency?
This is an amendment to the building code, so it is state law. It's it's part of the general laws, but it also is passed and developed by an agency called the Board of Buildings Regulations and Standards, BBRS. So they're the board that discusses all of this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a law passed by the legislature. I think it's a regulations passed by the board.
What I meant was that the bill that conforming to the building code is I think it's part of the general laws.
Correct. You have to comply with the building
That's what I meant.
code, and the BBRS shall set those standards.
Right, exactly.
That's that sort of thing. Yeah.
So Pedro, are you looking for something from this board and from the town to weigh
I
in?
don't know. I'll see what I'm trying to figure out what the best way is to approach it. Is it showing up to the public hearing and giving testament? Is it writing a letter with this board's approval or this board's recommendation? Maybe even the select board. Maybe I can get Tom from BRPC. That kind of thing. I'm trying to figure out what the best way is to have an influence, because it's kind of late in the game. They've been reviewing the building code, I think, for about 3 years, and so it's kind of late in the game. So I'm trying to do something that'll have as much impact as possible.
So related to before you get off the housing topic, we are continuing to work with Berkshire Regional Planning Commission on their study of various types of housing strategies, whether they be some zoning strategies or other regulatory strategies to increase housing opportunities, financial incentive strategies or tax incentive strategies, and those sorts of things. So BRPC staff is working on that, gathering examples from other towns, and hopefully providing kind of a roadmap for each strategy, how we would plan, study, pursue, legislate whatever strategy we might want to go with. Some may be discussed more by this board, if they're zoning related, for example. Some may be discussed by the housing subcommittee or by the select board themselves, or if it's a new program, by the housing trust fund, so housing trustees. So number of different strategies being looked at, and hopefully we can discuss those when the chair is back at your July meetings.
It seems like I think it's the American Tiny House Association is approaching the town about some sort of program they're trying to put together that actually assists homeowners in preparing a plot that is bringing in power and water and sewer to a movable tiny house site. I think they're having ongoing discussions. I don't know how far they've gotten with anybody at this point, but it's in the works.
All right. Anything else on housing strategies?
Well, I wonder.
I wanted to thank you guys for changing the title of that item, by the way. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm wondering if we can plan something with the trust, and either the trust and a joint meeting with the select board, or with the trust and the housing subcommittee.
To what effect?
What end?
Just so I think so there's more coordination and strategies, and just so I feel like, at least from where I sit on the on the Community Preservation Committee, it seems like it seems overly adversarial, and I think if the trust meets with us, or and the select board or the subcommittee, so that we can regularly lend our support to what they're doing, I don't think it can hurt.
So you say adversarial, you mean the relationships between the boards?
Well, it just seems like they're overly questioned for what they're trying to do, compared to other proposals brought forth by other town committees or boards.
Well, I can tell you one thing. It'd be really nice if the chair of the trust would come to us whenever they have a project to get our advice, to make sure that they're taking advantage of the zoning. I would love to see that.
No, he only goes to the select board.
But I think a good start to that might be like inviting the trust to either our joint meeting or to the subcommittee.
At this point, it's difficult, even in the era of Zoom, for boards to find a good night to meet. In fact, the trust is meeting right now.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be in two places at once. Ideally, I am the sort of go-between between all these boards. But it's been tough lately, especially when they're on the same night. So the Housing Trust is up to full membership now, which is great. I'm sure they're discussing their next strategies in addition to completing the work that they are already doing. So I guess short answer is everybody has a lot to do, and we'll see if that makes sense. And I'll continue to talk to the chairs of all the boards.
Yeah, you should. If you do talk to the chair of the trust, like, let them know what I just said. I think it'd be really good. When they have a project, that they understand the zoning. I mean, for us sitting on this board, I think we would all want that because we work hard to have a bylaw that works really well, and that could actually accomplish a lot if people understood how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other items on this topic to discuss? Okay. Hearing none. Next item is board and subcommittee updates, issues, and concerns. Anyone? John, the DAC, how's that going?
It's not. I don't know.
Okay,
Ask Kim.
All right, no boards, then tell me. Manager's report.
Wait.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
Go
ahead.
So we're trying to schedule a CPC meeting, which Chris has thrown out the tentative date of Thursday, the 21st of July. At which point, it's when we start to review the CPA plan. We do this every year at the beginning of the session. And so I'll be sending that around just for this board's comments. It can either be collectively or individually about the plan. And so again, that can be if members of the board wants to make recommendations for that, which can be allocating funding in a specific category, percentages or whatever, and so forth, which the CPC has been sort of unwilling to do in the past. And I mean, personally, I'm going to bring it up again, but I'd like to have you weigh in on it as well.
They've been unwilling to change the percentages?
Well, unwilling to set percentages, like to commit to, even last year, to commit 30% of the funds to affordable housing, although we spent well more than that. But at the beginning of the session, before seeing the applications, we're unwilling to even do that. Of course, I went for the full, what did I go for, Chris? 65%? 5%. I went for the full, or 10%. Yeah, so 65%. They didn't go for that. But then I went for 30%, and they didn't go for that either. So
you got to keep trying, Jeremy.
I know. So, but I would like
to let them get to you.
You need to work on your pitch.
Well, I know.
Need to bring like signs, maybe a PowerPoint.
You need to bring specific projects is what you need to do, and not just an idea.
That is yes. Anyway, the Community Preservation Committee has like one power, and that's the power we have. And beyond our approving and the amounts that we approve. And so that we can exercise our, and this followed a whole long discussion about the housing crisis that we're in. And the committee seemed, and this is my criticism, is that the committee seemed unwilling to exercise the one power that they have.
Which is to approve projects.
No, we can also set we
We only
can,
recommend projects.
yeah, we recommend to town meeting. But we can also we can decide how the funds will be divvied up before projects come.
Well, you can specify 70% of the money goes to affordable housing, but if there's no projects that come to spend that 70%, where's it going to go?
No, that 70% for that particular year will be put aside and can only be used in the future for affordable housing. But it would be,
But if nobody comes up with any projects for it, how's it going to be spent?
It gets banked.
It'll
it gets
roll over.
banked. It gets
Okay,
banked.
if nobody comes up with projects next year or the year after or the year after that. I mean, how many affordable housing projects have been turned down by the CPC?
You are having the discussion that the CPC always has about this. issue.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
yeah,
right.
and I'm just,
We're only
I'm
hearing
just saying-
Jeremy's viewpoint on this, which I don't
Well,
know.
which is all
The
that I'm
point
saying.
is here, if I could be so bold, the point is I thank Jeremy for letting this board know that the CPC is going to be reviewing the plan. And he looks forward to your input over the next month or two. Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Town Planners, you're up.
We can put
Yeah,
that on
really-
a future agenda if you want to discuss it.
The only report that I was going to give was related to those housing studies that we're doing, which I mentioned under the previous topic. For the next meeting, I don't have any pending applications, so I think we can, maybe spend a good amount of that meeting on the housing issues and strategies.
Is that the meeting on the 14th?
Yes.
The RPC has their annual meeting for electing new officers and so on the 14th at 5:30 before our meeting. So
Can we meet later?
I wonder if we could push it back a half hour because it's going to be a short meeting for BRPC, but it is a meeting I would like to be in.
Malcolm, is that enough time or should we push it back to our old meeting time? 7.
I talked to Tom Atisko about it, and he said it's going to be a short meeting, so I don't think it's going to go more than an hour.
Yeah, that should be enough time.
Yeah, if it's
And then one of
possible,
those ones.
if we could push it back, if we could push it back to either 6:30 or 7, I would appreciate that. If we don't have a full agenda.
I'd love to say that we can do that, but I'm only the vice chair.
I know. So maybe, maybe
yeah.
Chris can take this under advisement and discuss it with the real chair.
Wow.
Okay, 6:30 or 7 next time.
Very good.
Thanks.
Citizens speak. We have 2 citizens in attendance. Would either of you like to speak? Raise your hand, please. All right, so nobody wants to speak. So at 7:33, without objection, I will adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, guys.
Recording stopped.
Bye. Have a good one.